Hey guys, QuinntonTV here, and welcome to a brand new video where today we are here with the second presidential analysis video. This is going to be my last analysis video. I am going to be making kind of like a mini video after this at some point to basically talk about who wins and all that sort of thing. And I might do a second video as well just before that. What day is you seeing this? It's November 1st, so the election is on Tuesday, which is the 4th, I want to say? No, the 3rd, I'm retarded. You'll be seeing this on the 1st, and I'll try and maybe get a video up for tomorrow as well, just talking about a few things. But other than that, that's going to be my last electoral/political video, because a lot of you guys are sick of them. I get that a lot of people don't really like politics. I just thought this was very important and I had to talk about it. So you're actually seeing some Halo 3 gameplay in the background because I really like this game at the moment. I've been playing it a lot with the MCC and it's just so fucking fun. Like, I've just been, just vibing with it, to be honest. Like, I've been going on, doing well, like, completely out of the blue, and I had no clue what was going on with it, but I don't know, it's a really good game, so if you haven't played Halo 3 before, it's quite an old game, actually. It's about, maybe 14 years old at this point? No, 13 years old, sorry, but it's still a really fun game, so I recommend going and checking it out. So, in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at Donald Trump. Now, if you don't know, Donald Trump is the 45th and current President of the United States, born on the 14th of June, 1946, and his full name is actually Donald John Trump, which I did not know until researching for this video at all. Before entering politics, he was a businessman and television personality. Born and raised in Queens, New York City, Trump attended Fordham University for 2 years and received a bachelor's degree in economics from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. That's not a mouthful whatsoever. And at least the University of Fordham is easy to pronounce, other than what school Joe Biden went to. Like, Jesus Christ, I had no clue how to pronounce that. But he became president of his father's real estate business in 1971. He renamed it to the Trump Organization and expanded its operations to building or renovating skyscrapers, hotels, casinos, and golf courses. Trump's political positions have been described as populist, protectionist, isolationist, and nationalist. He entered the 2016 presidential race as a Republican and was elected in a surprise electoral college victory over Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton, while losing the popular vote. Many of his comments and actions have been characterized as racially charged or racist. So I did say I wasn't going to mention that, but in this case, as it's just, a little bit of an overview right there, I thought I'd mention it. And in the history as well, which is coming up, I thought I'd mention that because obviously Donald Trump doesn't have a history in politics. So the history is basically just about him as a person, his, presidential acts, stuff like that, not pretty much like political achievements, like, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But yeah, we're going to move on to the history right now. Hopefully you guys will leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I don't think that I'm going to be doing any more of these kind of videos, so if you're only going to watch political videos, I don't recommend subscribing. Maybe just like and comment, that'll be enough for me, in my opinion. But if you go into really like gaming content, I play a lot of Halo, which is something I really should do more videos on, considering I'm like one of the main guys in Halo Zone at this point. And also I play a lot of Call of Duty, so those are the two main games I'm going to be playing on the channel. However, I want to start maybe playing some Black Mesa on the channel, which could be pretty damn fun. But anyway, let's jump straight in to the history. So this point may come as a bit of a shocker for a lot of people watching this video, but just between you and me, Donald Trump is the current president of the United States. Like, who knew that one? Who knew that one? It's not like he's been causing controversy for the last 4 fucking years or some shit like that, but Donald Trump's been in office since 2016. The Trump administration was a very controversial one. Some major controversies can include the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. If you don't know, Brett Kavanaugh was basically accused of rape by some woman. I don't know too much about the case. I'm pretty sure, though, that he wasn't found guilty, considering he's on, the Supreme Court. He also refused to publish his tax returns, which, were kind of like leaked recently, or he was kind of forced to, publish them. He fired some of his staff over Twitter, which was not exactly very professional. His impeachment in January 2020 and his views, which some people have definitely perceived as racist. I did mention that I won't talk about them fully because it's already kind of been done to death, but I thought that in, this little preamble for the video, I would mention it. However, to say that Trump has made no accomplishments whatsoever is a massive, massive understatement. The man has made some pretty huge contributions to America, especially the economy. He's also done some pretty successful policies with his own core supporter base, and that's why you can never write him off as a complete failure, because there's no president that's a complete failure. Every president has done good things. It's just you have to weigh up as a person whether you think, they did enough good things and enough bad things, or they could have done plenty of good things and you just don't like them. That's fair enough because of their ideology, or just you don't like them as a person. That is fair enough for not liking a president. But basically, Trump's core supporter base is almost like a cult. They genuinely, absolutely love and adore him. Like, in their eyes, he's done so much for them, like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was popular with his supporters, as taxes were basically cut for small businesses by 20%, which would in turn provide a $415 billion tax relief for small business owners. New investments into the American economy. After it was passed, businesses invested $482 billion into new American projects. He also lowered the corporation tax from 35% to 21%. Previously to this, 35% was probably the highest in the developed world under Obama. So Trump kind of lowered that to help, American businesses thrive. And what happened in the UK, they have Amazon in London and that, and they give them tax grants so they actually stay in the UK. The lowering of corporation tax actually does the similar sort of thing. 35% to 21%, that is a big deal. It's gone from the highest in the Western world to a relatively low figure when you compare it to some Western European countries and stuff like that. Finally, US GDP growth has gone up by 3% in 4 quarters under his administration, which is impressive when you consider how big and how vast the American economy actually is. It's massive. It's the biggest economy in the world, and it's gone up by 3%. That's impressive. No one can deny that. But we're going to be moving on now to the key 2020 policies and achievements. Now, I've added in the achievements there because Trump's policies aren't that big this year. He's basically just, carrying on from his presidency, with immigration and all that sort of stuff. All the stuff he promised back in 2016, he's still kind of, riding out the coattails on that, making sure that, keep America great, as he's calling it. But we're going to include some of his achievements in more detail here, because there are a good amount of achievements, and he's done some very good reforms to both immigration, the economy, and all sorts of stuff. And depending on your point of view, you could argue that his America First foreign policy and the healthcare system, when he's been trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act brought in by Obama, you could argue that's a good thing, depending on your political beliefs. So, the man's definitely done a lot with his presidency. And then you just have to look at the Supreme Court. He's had 3 appointments to that. You had, obviously, Kavanaugh, there was another guy. And then you have Amy Coney Barrett, who is the new person on the Supreme Court after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. So, he's definitely put a lot of people on the Supreme Court, and he's made a big impact on US politics. So that is rather interesting to look at. But as I said, he's kind of just going off his 2016 policies, and that's what's made him successful with his fan base. So it's going to make sense that he carries that on now. But we're going to move on to that. So here I am trying to follow a similar format as possible to the Joe Biden video, which I'm just realising we're at this point already and we are nowhere near the length of time that the Joe Biden video was. So I'm probably going to actually have something in at the end just talking about a bit of the controversies that Trump's had, because I'm pretty sure that's very important that voters know. And some of the weird shit he said, about his kids and that, honestly, it's a bit fucking weird. I'm not implying that Trump's a pedo, because I really don't think he is by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's a fucking blundering idiot, but I don't think he's a paedophile somehow. I think he does have some sense of morality to him. But yeah, let's jump into this. So upon entering office, President Trump called on Congress to fully fund a wall along the southern border, to close legal loopholes that enable illegal immigration, to end chain migration, and to eliminate the visa lottery program. President Trump pulled the United States out of the negotiations for a global compact on migration, a plan for a global governance of immigration and refugee policy that may have compromised US sovereignty. So obviously Trump is a nationalist by literally every definition of the word, so of course he's going to do what, basically means that America has sovereignty. That's like the whole Brexit argument in the UK. Like, we want sovereignty for our country and no foreign powers telling us what to do. That's the similar sort of themes going on for Trump's presidency and pulling out of this global compact on migration. I keep saying mitigation by accident. Well, I keep wanting to say mitigation, I should say. But the president released his immigration reform proposal, which calls for a transition to merit-based immigration plan. Following pressure from the Trump administration, Mexico has agreed to deploy 6,000 National Guard troops throughout the country and on its southern border to stop the immigration crisis, dismantle human smuggling networks, and work more closely with the US to share information about migrants. Trump aims to continue his hardline stance on immigration by continuing the construction of the wall on the US-Mexico border. He has so far secured funding for 445 miles of the 722-mile barrier. So Trump's making progress in the immigration department. Obviously, with the 2016 stuff, the House, I'm pretty sure, in 2018 became a Democrat-held, but the Senate remained Republican-controlled. So Trump still did have, the ability to push stuff through Congress. But in the House, he definitely had to make some compromises to his immigration, strategy. So basically what happened is they made him promise about, basically securing the rights of dreamers in the US so they didn't have to be scared, like we mentioned in the last video. But he basically said, in return for the Democrats helping out with the funding of the wall, he would also help dreamers. So, it's a nice, healthy compromise there, which you really don't see a lot in modern politics due to the partisan nature of American politics. It's good to see that people can still work together, and that makes me very happy. But yeah, other than that, the fact that Mexico and America are working very closely to stop illegal immigration is also a good thing. With Mexico and America working together, they can probably do a lot better of a job than just, America having to check everything themselves because they don't know to what standards the Mexican government is checking people. So, of course, the two working in partnership is going to, employ information to be shared about certain individuals that may be a threat to American security, or just individual smuggling groups, so they can both work together to bring them down, which is always a good thing. But yeah, we're going to move on to COVID-19. There isn't a whole lot here. Obviously, Trump's on the side that COVID-19 is a bunch of bollocks, so he's not going to have a strict policy for, the virus. He's just going to carry on with what he's doing at the moment. So, but that's a consistent thing with COVID-19, climate change, and gun reform. I had to do quite a bit of digging and just look into things that, the White House staff have said, and obviously Trump himself on certain issues, because he's not massively fond of these policies. So I had to do quite a lot of digging, and he doesn't talk about them a lot. So, yeah, those are going to be the controversial ones that people really want him to do stuff about. He's not going to do them because he doesn't believe in it, and a lot of his supporters don't believe in it. But anyway, we're going to move on to COVID-19 now. So I just realised that I will be pretty much using up all of my Halo 3 gameplay for this video, which I'm completely fine with because I need a lot of games considering this is a longer video, and a lot of my games only last for like 5 minutes, well, for one team ends up winning, so I'm going to end up needing to use like 2 free games at the moment, and then after this segment I have no clue how many games I'll have ended up using because it's going to be ridiculous, let's be honest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up the production of this video. Currently, it is Halloween as I'm recording this, so it's very spooky, and then I'm going to record some in the morning when I wake up. So hopefully that should be a bit of fun. But I'm going to do, before I go to sleep, I'm going to do COVID-19, climate change, and maybe gun reform. So that will leave only healthcare and foreign policy for tomorrow, which, you know, is understandable because I don't really want to have a lot of work to do. So COVID-19 is going to be really short because Trump has actually not talked about it in his presidential campaign at all. So a senior aide to President Donald Trump has conceded that the US is not going to control the pandemic. Instead, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said COVID-19 can only be defeated by mitigation areas like vaccines and therapeutics. About 225,000 Americans have died since the pandemic began, which is the highest figure for any other country. The US recorded 83,718 new COVID-19 cases on Saturday, according to Johns Hopkins University, just short of the record of 83,757 reported on Friday. Previously, the highest number of reported infections in a single day was 77,362 on the 16th of July. So, basically, the American policy is very clear. They believe that all this lockdown and all this shit is absolute bollocks. They're only doing it because, you know, it's going to the states and stuff because the president doesn't exactly have control over this stuff because not Article 10, that's me being retarded, the 10th Amendment of the US Constitution, which says anything that's not written in the Constitution, the power goes to the states, as I mentioned in my last video. But this basically means that, you know, each state can decide their own COVID laws. The president has very little to do with it unless they kind of like, you know, start like, you know, basically passing laws in Congress that basically gives them the right to do that and help influence. They can't outright decide, but they can definitely influence the laws in each state. So, we can pretty much tell here that Trump's like, nah, this is a load of bollocks. The only way we're going to defeat the virus is if we get a vaccine. Like, none of this lockdown shit is going to work. So it's a very clear policy with very clear goals in mind. But yeah, that's literally it for COVID-19. Like, obviously I was there talking for at least a good 5 minutes about Joe Biden, but here we're only about 3 minutes and 23 seconds into the video, this audio clip, and that's literally it. There's nothing else to talk about. So we're going to move on to climate change, everyone's favourite subject. So here we are, everyone's favourite subject, climate change. You either really love it and you're one of those eco-activists that probably bums trees, or you're like Trump and you deny its existence. So I would say I'm somewhere in between. I'm not quite at a level where I want to bum trees yet, not gonna lie. But that's pretty much my stance on the whole thing. I think that all this, we're going to be dead in 12 years because of climate change, is absolute bollocks. Like, they've been saying that for 24 years, pretty much. They said it all the way back in 2012 at this point. Like, we're going to be dead in 12 years. And then before that, they said it in 2000 and all sorts. Al Gore, you know, he's a bit of a mongrel, not going to lie. But, basically, since he took office, Mr. Trump has rolled back hundreds of environmental protections, including limits on carbon dioxide emissions from power plants and vehicles, and protections for federal waterways across the country, fulfilling a campaign promise from 2016. So basically, what Trump's policy is he needed to get rid of some of these environmental laws to fire up the US economy, which, you know, worked because of the 3%, you know, GDP growth in 4 quarters, which is fucking impressive for a president. But yeah, you needed to get rid of some of those environmental laws in order to, you know, fire up the economy, because to work at a full, you know, capacity, they had to get rid of some of the restrictions on their, you know, like staff and on the health and safety and stuff like that, and especially carbon emissions. So like power plants, for example, couldn't produce a certain amount of energy because they're obviously using coal, and that means that they're going to produce carbon dioxide, which is harmful to the atmosphere. And Trump decided that he needed to, get rid of that carbon emissions and basically make it so that they can operate at full capacity to help improve the US economy. So he also withdrew from the US Paris Climate Agreement, saying that the deal disadvantages the US to the exclusive benefit of other countries. That withdrawal will be formally completed after November's election. Most recently, his administration approved of oil and gas drilling in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which has been off-limit for drilling for decades. So this is something I don't agree with. It's a wildlife refuge and they're drilling for oil in it. That's something I can't really get behind, even though I do understand the importance of getting this oil and like natural gas and stuff. Because obviously, let's face it, a lot of renewable energy is fucking shocking. Like, there's no way of properly storing it. It has to be under very specific conditions, like wind power in, particular. It has to be windy, but it can't be too windy, otherwise the wind turbines will get damaged. So that's just the biggest load of bollocks I have ever heard. The only, renewable force of electricity I really like is probably hydroelectricity, because that's reliable. You can kind of, control when you burn it, for example. I say burn it, but you can, control when you use it, so that's always a good thing when you're trying to create energy. You need that demand. Say, for example, I watched a documentary in, science when I was, in year 8 or whatever, but, around 8 o'clock in the UK, after Coronation Street's on, they have to have a surge in the national grid, because that's when everyone in the UK goes and puts the kettle on. It's the most British power surge of all time, but they need, the electricity, so it has to be generated through hydroelectric power. And what they do is they basically just release water down a dam, and that turns a turbine and stuff and generates electricity. So hydroelectricity is our main form of electricity in the UK, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. And then fossil fuels and nuclear fuel are the second and third. So yeah, that's how that works. But I do understand the importance of getting the oil and gas for the US economy, but a nature reserve, is it really that worth it? Because if anything fucking goes wrong, there's going to be a lot of backlash against Trump. But anyway, that's climate change done. We're going to move on to gun reform. Everyone's favourite fucking subject. Whoopie-doo. So this actually surprised me. After the US was rocked by mass shootings in Texas and Ohio in 2019, Mr. Trump expressed support for a series of reforms like tighter background checks for gun buyers and red flag laws, which blocks access to firearms for those who have been deemed a risk to society. So this is actually very interesting, because obviously Biden had proposed a lot of, gun reform deals and stuff like that. He was the person that kind of implemented the whole gun checks in the first place, so it's kind of interesting to see Trump borrow from Biden's ideas. But after this initial flurry of interest, Mr. Trump has done little to move these ideas forward. The president is instead to continue his vocal defense of the US Constitution's Second Amendment over the powerful gun lobby, the NRA. So basically, I'm just starting to draw a few little differences between Trump and Biden here, and also some similarities. So both presidents want to respect the Second Amendment. Let's be fair about that. Joe Biden believes that he can, do implement gun laws that still adhere to the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. But Trump said, okay, you can still own assault rifles, that's completely fine. It's just we need background checks on the people buying them to make sure they're not fucking mentally deranged or some shit like that. But that's just interesting to me, to be honest. They're having similar stances. It's just, if you take the assault rifles out of the equation, they've got a pretty similar stance. They believe in, tighter gun checks for people, which is kind of interesting. However, I doubt any of this policy will be put forward, because, as it said, Trump's interest in this kind of fizzled out. And obviously he keeps backing the NRA, so the NRA would not have any of this shit. So that's kind of thrown all of that out the window. But it's interesting to see what he will actually do, because Trump's very unpredictable, and it's interesting to see how he reacts to things and stuff, which is why American politics is so interesting for us as British people. Like, we're just so confused as to what they're doing over there, and it's just like, you know that Top Gear meme of them like they're the funniest creatures ever, Americans? Yeah, that's exactly what this is. But this has literally been the shortest section yet. We're only about 240, Jesus, 2 minutes 40 into the segment, and we're pretty much done. So yeah, we're going to move on to healthcare now. So it is the next morning now. I'm feeling very refreshed and ready to talk about this sort of thing, because as I was recording this last night, it was getting pretty late and I really didn't want to record anymore. Obviously my family were going to bed, so I was like, oh shit, if I carry on recording, I'm going to wake someone up and I'm going to get a sledgehammer to the back of my head. So I decided that I would, take a little bit of a break and then come back in the next day and basically do the rest of the video. So now we're going to be talking about healthcare. So healthcare it's very different in the US, as I've said in my last video. In the US, you have to pay for your healthcare. If you don't, well, technically what you're meant to do is pay for your insurance and then you get healthcare free, technically, because your insurance pays for it. But if you don't have insurance, then you're completely fucked, basically. Mr. Trump campaigned in 2016 on repealing the Affordable Care Act brought in by former President Barack Obama. Though falling short of a complete repeal, the administration has succeeded in undoing parts of that law, including a repeal of the individual mandate, which required people to buy health insurance or pay a tax penalty. President Trump has also promised to bring down drug prices in the US, and in July brought in measures that would allow discounts and imports of cheaper drugs from abroad. He declared the opioid crisis a national health emergency in 2017 and offered $1.8 billion in federal funding to states for prevention, treatment, and recovery measures. But the president's critics say that his ongoing efforts to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, which expanded healthcare coverage to millions, is detrimental to battling the opioid crisis. So, yeah, that's interesting. The Affordable Care Act, I have no opinion on. I don't know too much about it, I should say. I really don't know anything about it, how it works or anything. That's because I don't really need to know how it works. We have the NHS over here, which we do take for granted, I will be honest. I'm not a massive fan of it in some areas. I think the waiting lists are ridiculously long, and some things they do in the NHS just don't make any fucking sense. And how they've handled all this COVID shit, I have my doubts about it. And I have my doubts about the NHS, but you know what? They do offer a very good service, so I'm not going to talk down on them too much. But it's interesting to see about the drug prices coming in from abroad, which, Trump's always been about America first, which is, getting drugs from abroad just because they're cheaper. I think that's mainly because American pharmaceuticals have, a tendency to rip people off, so maybe that's why he said get them in from abroad, because it's going to save people money. Who fucking knows? But anyway, that's the end of healthcare. There isn't a lot there, obviously. The next one, which is foreign policy, there's a little bit more of, mainly because Trump has done a lot in terms of foreign policy in the last few years, so it's going to be an interesting ride? Yes, ride. That's what I meant. So for foreign policy, Trump has done a lot in the last few years, so it would be kind of hard to put it all into one little section right here, but I've done my best, and I've put some of the key moments, I guess, into this section. So Trump has promised to put America first in US foreign policy. The White House said in a statement that this means that reasserting American sovereignty and the right of all nations to determine their own future with a focus on ensuring security and prosperity. He has challenged some international alliances, pushing for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, members to boost their defense spending in the military alliance, and he has recently reiterated a promise to bring down US troop levels overseas, which are currently at about the same level as when he took office, specifically in places like Germany and Afghanistan. He has foreign policy successes recently, helping to broker a deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates to normalize relations, and he has touted the killings of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, leader of ISIS, and Iran's powerful military commander, General Qasem Soleimani. I think that's how you say it. I'm not very good with Middle Eastern names, to be quite honest with you. They kind of trip me up because a lot of sounds used in Arabic and that are very different from the sounds in English. So I would read that in one way and it would be read in a completely other way because the sounds are different. It's like when I read Japanese as well, it's like I go off the Japanese letters, not the English ones, because if I did, I'd completely fucking butcher the words. So that's just how that works. Other languages can be a little bit complicated, especially when they use a different phonetic system. But other than that, it's a different culture. It's going to be a bit different anyway. But another thing I wanted to quickly talk about, I never actually put this in the script, but I wanted to talk about anyway, is the TikTok ban, or the supposed TikTok ban. I'm not too sure what's actually happened with that. But basically, Trump said that he was going to ban TikTok if they didn't sell, their shares to another company. And Microsoft were looking like they were going to purchase it, actually. But basically, if you don't know, TikTok is partially owned by a Chinese company, which has a bit of a dodgy past. They've known for selling data to the Communist Party in China. If they're known for that, I can understand why Trump did that. And I thought that was a really good thing. I remember a load of girls on Snapchat were like, oh my god, how can they ban TikTok? I practically live on TikTok. Basically making a bunch of incoherent dog noises. And you're just like, okay, so you can't see the proper geopolitical implications behind this. And you just look at it and say, okay, so it's partially owned by a Chinese company that has, in the past, sold data to the Communist Party, and no president wants the data going to, the Chinese government and the Communist Party. So it would make a lot of sense for a ban on TikTok. So what they were originally planning to do, I think it was sometime in September, the deadline was, Trump said that if you don't sell your shares to another company, then basically you won't be allowed to operate on US soil. So it's an interesting scenario, to be quite honest with you. Trump has done a lot for foreign policy. I guess you could argue actually that's a bit of domestic as well, because you don't want US data going to a foreign power whatsoever. It's like recently as well, electoral information was leaked to the Russians and the Iranians, I think it was. It's just not great having your data go to a foreign power because you have no idea how they're going to use it. So anyway, that is actually it for all of the policies right there. I would like to do a quick little section at the end of the video, like I did for Mr. Biden. Basically, I'm just going to talk about some of the weird shit Trump's done, and it should be relatively interesting. So let's get into this. So I've titled this segment, Trump Can Be a Little Bit Queer, and I've titled it that because he can be. And no, I don't mean in a gay way, you fucking rejects. I mean in a way that it's a bit odd. And as everyone knows, I live in the fucking 1800s, so what do you expect? Trump's done some weird shit over the years, like talking about his daughter in a really weird way, which I'll put on screen now.
I don't think Ivanka would do that inside the magazine, although she does have a very nice figure. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop
You know what? You are sick.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
No, how
Well, you're
terrible.
known for saying
Is that
outrageous
terrible?
things, Mr.
And this has happened multiple times as well. He's been a bit odd with his daughter. Now, I'm not implying that, Trump's some incestuous fucking hillbilly from Alabama, but it is a little bit odd. I know what he means. I think we can all tell what he means. He's just trying to get across the point that his daughter's very attractive, which she is, let's be fair. She's one of the better looking girls on this planet, but he's just trying to get across the point that she's very attractive and she's front cover material. However, he didn't really phrase that in the best of ways. The way he phrased it sounded like he wants to date his daughter, which is a bit fucking odd. We also can't forget this legendary statement.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and grab him by the pussy.
Thanks.
Now, don't worry, he didn't say this to Mr. Kevin McAllister there. I don't even know where he said this. It's like some old phone calls from like 2005 or some shit, which, like, we know the guy's a bit odd. Let's just say that. He's known for some of the most outrageous shit I have ever seen. And it's just funny, you know, sitting back and watching it all. As I said before, it's like that fucking Top Gear meme where the British people are just watching the Americans and seeing what goes on. And I'm pretty sure there's like a Simpsons episode where it's like a documentary of Springfield and like the Queen's watching it or something. It's like, oh, how entertaining those Americans are. That's the worst accent of the Queen I've ever fucking did. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's video here. If you want my predictions on who wins, I'm not sure if I'm going to make a video on that. I might make like just a short video after this at some point, just explaining who I think's actually going to win. So that should be relatively interesting. But this is coming in QuinntonTV. Make sure you go and join the Discord down below. Make sure you also go follow me on Twitter and Twitch. I tend to stream semi-regularly over on Twitch. Jesus Christ, I can't fucking speak today. But yeah, I tend to stream semi-regularly over there. I've not streamed for a good few weeks, but hopefully I'll be jumping back into that as November happens, because I've not got a hell of a lot to do at the moment. Especially after this video goes up. I literally will have nothing to fucking do. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's video here. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.